So here's what we're doing. I'm going to make this Western outfit using a 1940s pattern. So this is a pretty intense pattern and there's only one page of instructions for 3 different garments, but so far I have sewn on the pocket on one side of the pants. This is the front, and now I have to turn it and baste. First I'm going to press. It's a very interesting construction. Let's do it. So first I started by making the pockets, and that actually became the rest of the front of the pants. These pockets aren't just extra something to hold your stuff. They actually are absolutely essential to the construction of the rest of the trousers. So after I did the pockets, I did the darts. And I basted all of the seams so that I could fit later. Next, I did the belt carriers, as they were called in this pattern, aka belt loops. So I pinned those on, right sides together, matching up the raw edges. There were guides that I had to transfer from the pattern, so I knew where to place these. So I just basted them on, and then after that it's time for the waistband. So you basically sandwich the belt carriers with the waistband and the trousers. Graded the seams, and there you go. That's what that looks like. So this did call for these to be top stitched down. I ended up only hand stitching. The pants didn't have any other top stitching, so I thought if only the belt carriers had it, it might look out of place. So dark in here. Okay, so now I am going to move on to the blouse. I am now preparing to do the bound buttonholes, which I know take quite some time. However, I've done them enough to where I'm pretty comfortable. So I am just cutting, I just cut some scraps for the little bound buttonholes. And now I'm just gonna mark where I need to place them on my blouse. I will pin right sides together. Try to make sure they're straight enough. I think the hardest part for me about doing bound buttonholes is just making sure they're lined up properly. Other than that, they're pretty easy. And if you'd like a more in-depth bound buttonhole tutorial, I have one and I will link it up above, right up there. They're really not that bad, I promise. So I would say give it a go if you haven't tried them before. Hoping that this will come together somewhat quickly, but I do have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bound buttonholes to do on the front, and then let's see, 4 on each cuff. I was thinking about doing snaps, but I decided not to. This fabric is so stretchy. Let me show you how stretchy this is. It's so stretchy, I was concerned that the snaps might come out, and I didn't want that to happen. So I'm doing bound buttonholes instead, because I have done them quite a few times and I feel comfortable. Alrighty, I've got my right side here with my right side scraps for the buttonholes, and I am just going to do my patented counting technique where I count how many stitches I go on each side of the buttonhole, and that keeps it consistent rather than trying to eyeball it. You know, it'd probably help if I picked out some buttons first, so let's do that before I start cutting into my project. Okay, let's see. So I'm gonna need eight buttons for the cuff, 5 buttons for the top. This could take a minute to find enough. Can you tell this is a rush project? I'm not going to be super picky here because I don't have a lot of options. Ooh! Hey, these could work. Let's see if I have enough. Oh, I think we have a winner, like instantly. Hooray! I'm going with these. They're like kind of a gold. Here, I'll zoom in. Vintage. I got these at an antique mall couple years ago. So we've got, whoops, yay, that worked out. Ooh, dodged a bullet there. Okay, proceed. Oh yes, that shall be perfect. Cool, so I am going to go ahead and do the rest of these, and I'll get back to you. After I completed the first stage of the bound buttonholes, I moved on to the darts. And then it was time to tackle this odd welt pocket. It's sort of like a bound buttonhole in a sense. Not exactly. This is the first time I've actually done one of these. And I didn't have any piping cording, so I just used a piece of actual piping that I had and created a little casing for it with a scrap of my fabric. So then you line up your 2 piping pieces on your guides, and I basted this by hand, as you can see, because I really wanted to make sure it was exactly where it needed to be. So then I basted again by hand, that pocket in place. Then I sewed all the way around. And then similarly to the bound buttonholes, at this point I cut into that pocket. This fabric was quite bulky to do this, It did work out in the end, but it was a challenge. I do think this would benefit from some arrow tacks on the edges. Maybe someday. So then I sewed the other piece of the pocket to that piece and I serged around. And then I completed the back tucks. And serged all of the seam allowances. Then I sewed the shoulders. And the side seams as well. And then I moved on to the collar, which really didn't have a whole lot of instructions. Basically, I sewed around right sides together and then braided that seam allowance, turned. I did not interface this collar or anything because this fabric is so sturdy on its own. And I also didn't want to lose the stretch, and I don't have any stretch interfacing. But it's completely fine. It's thick enough to where it doesn't lose its shape. So at this point, you create a facing by folding the front of the shirt over. And then I realized I needed to seam rip down a little bit on the collar. And that's where that was. And then after that, you are able to press the seam allowance and then hand stitch that down on top of the inside of the shirt, encasing those raw edges. And then I did a narrow hem. Next time I would not serge the hem first, I would just press it. This fabric is, like I keep saying, a bit bulky, and I can see the line in under the pants when I wear the shirt with it. It's not a huge deal, but it's annoying. So I am able, at this point, I was able to complete the bound buttonholes. I wasn't able to complete them before because I needed to create the facing. And to create the facing, I had to do everything else. So at this point, I was able to finish the interior of the bound buttonholes by hand, as you can see me doing there. And voila. Hello. Messy house again, surprise. Yeah, so I figured since I'm not trying to kill myself to get this done for Halloween now, I would actually take some time and fit these trousers, pants, slacks a little bit better. So I have them on inside out. Basically, the problem is that the crotch is like super baggy, very unflattering, and they just look huge. They're like way too like flared out on the sides here. I pretty much just cut the size like exactly as it was, which was for a 39-inch hip. Mine are actually about 40 inches, so I figured, you know, if anything, I'd be a little bit, you know, more snug, but no, not snug at all. That being said, I've pinned here on the side. I just need to take that in like maybe 1/4 of an inch or so. But then the crotch is where the magic happens. Oh man, that is attractive. Basically, I've got the center seam taken in quite a bit right here just to kind of smooth over better because I was having a lot of excess vertical fabric right here. Sorry, I'm like super shaky. And then it's also like super low. So, I mean, my body kind of ends like here. So there's still quite a bit of ease. It's not like totally fitted, but this is just excessive. You know, it was drafted like, I don't know, really, really, really loose. And then I don't want to mess too much with the back because the back fits pretty well. It fits better for sure than the front and the center, like the center of my body. I don't know what you want to call it. But the butt right here, I don't want to do anything right here because this curve actually feels good. And if I brought it even any tighter, it would be like wedgie city. So I'm not doing anything right there, but this part right here, it is like slightly too curved. Like my butt is more teardrop shaped. So I'm just gonna take that in just a hair, just straighten that out. And yeah, and so then I'll kind of reevaluate, and the inner part right here will be affected by this other stuff. I don't know. I don't want to do too much at a time, but I'm just gonna baste for now. And then if this works out, I will mark it on my pattern. Yeah, so that's that, and I'll see you in a minute. Wow, I am so glad I decided to do this. Like, they look tons and tons better. So the pockets, I do have to, you know, slip stitch in place later. Hem, gonna try to get as accurate as possible on my paper pattern. You know what, the one place, and I think part of this is just excess seam allowance that needs to be trimmed. The booty's a little funny, but I think I'm not gonna worry about it. Like, it's good enough. So yeah, oh my God, so much better. Yay. Pants, always, shorts, you know, it's intimidating. It's intimidating to fit these, but the nice thing about the vintage pattern is that they are so freaking low that all you gotta do is go up. You don't have to try to go down like a modern pattern to fit. Now I just have to install the zipper, do the hem, and gonna move on to finishing the top, the shirt. Let's do it. Here you can see my pattern adjustments. I did end up taking just a tiny bit more off the side seams. That was the front, I believe. Nope, that was the back, and this is the front. Something I neglected to do originally was alter the pockets, so I did do that later. Now I did also go in on the shirt side seams a bit, and just remember, if you do that, you have to also do that to your sleeve pattern. Speaking of sleeves, so there's a little vent, I don't know if you call it a vent, but the part that goes up into the sleeve where the cuff buttons, you have to create a little facing. 2.5 by 4.5 inches. Finish the edges and then right sides together. So that. And then after that, I sliced all the way up to the point. And with the stretch fabric, it's so dicey because you really don't want those stitching lines to come out. So the pattern does call to reinforce that. I probably should have used some fray check, but I didn't. I could always go back and add some later. But that's how it looks when it's done. You want to really make sure you can get as close as possible to make it nice and pointy. And now I got to move on to the cuffs, the bound buttonholes for the cuffs. 4 on each side. I wish it was that fast. And then after that, I gathered that whole entire sleeve, the bottom of the sleeve. I just did 2 lines of stitching. And I gathered it by hand. And then I pinned that to the cuff, lining up there's an overlap for the button, so you have to make sure that you consider that if you ever do a sleeve like this. And these cuffs were pretty tricky. Like, I kept going back to make sure that I definitely had the correct orientation, because you really didn't want the buttons to be on the wrong side. I did end up doing it successfully, I'm happy to say. You end up sewing the right sides of the cuffs together and then turning. After that, I hand sewed that cuff down to that seam allowance. And after that, I top stitched all the way around the perimeter of the cuff. And this is definitely an instance where the fabric being stretchy didn't really particularly help me. I had to really make sure I wasn't stretching it as I went. Basically, that's how that lines up, like so. And then after that, I was able to complete the inside of the bound buttonholes. And they were pretty small, so it was a little tricky. But I just watched a movie, Crimson Peak. The costumes are incredible. And thanks to Ruth Marie for recommending it and letting me borrow it. So after I completed the cuffs, I moved on to setting in the sleeve. Sleeves, technically. And after I was happy with that, I did serge that seam allowance. And then all that was left to do were the shoulder pads. And I actually just used the same pattern for the shoulder pads as my 30th birthday dress. However, I realized later after looking at the pattern that it called for triangular shoulder pads. So I ended up trimming them down a bit to make them more triangular, which was really a shame because I had to cut all of that catch stitching. But it worked out. It was fine in the end. I got a feeling calling blues, oh Lord, since my baby said goodbye. Don't know what I'm gonna do. All I do is sit and cry. Oh Lord, that last long day he said goodbye. Oh Lord, I thought I would die. He'll do ya, he'll do me. He's got the kind of loving. Lord, I love to hear it when he calls me my sweet baby. What a beautiful dream. Hate to think it all over. I lost my heart at sea. Do you ever just put on an outfit and have to like kind of do a stupid smile because you just feel so you? This is how this outfit makes me feel, which is kind of funny because I am not from the West. I really don't have any ties to cowboy culture. My dad's side of the family does and did live in Appalachia. So there's some country western blood, I guess, there. I don't know, it just gets me. This pattern, oh my gosh, it definitely was a test for me, and I think I passed it. I'm pretty darn happy with how everything turned out. I think the fit, if I do say so myself, I altered the crotch and the butt area, mostly the crotch. and actually achieved a fit I'm very, very happy with, which was huge for me because I really haven't gotten a good pants fitting yet. I've been kind of close, but no cigar. But this time I think it's the cigar. I'm really happy with the top too. The one thing is that this fabric is a bit heavy, and I do think it works. It's just for our climate, it's hot and humid, and I'm really gonna only be able to wear the top for sure a few weeks out of the year, if that. I can wear it around the house, but going outside, it's gonna have to be a lot cooler. It's almost a jacket, really. I really want to make this again in a non-stretch, like a cotton. This is a cotton, but it's quite stretchy, as you will have seen before, and the stretchiness helped a lot with the fitting, but detracted when I was actually sewing it. It was harder to get a clean result. I didn't really film a whole lot of my struggling. Actually, I think this is one of my first projects in a while that I really didn't make any mistakes. I am very proud that I was able to decipher the directions from just one sheet. Overall, I would give this project a yeehaw. I'm really, really happy with it. I love it. I love it as a set. I love the pieces individually. I can wear them with a whole bunch of stuff I've made. So if you enjoyed this video, then make sure you subscribe, please, and turn on the bell. And if you would like to follow along with my other projects and my other shenanigans and some more ukulele covers, then be sure to follow me on Instagram. I'm at Liz Von Villis. My Facebook group is Vintage Sewing with Liz. I would love to have you. And until next time, thank you for watching. Bye.